Hello, everyone. My name is Wändi Bruine de Bruin, and I'm a Provost Professor of Public Policy, Psychology, and Behavioral Science at the University of Southern California. Today, I'll be presenting a paper entitled Low Numeracy Around the World, Implications for Financial Well-Being. This is a paper I worked on with Paul Slovic, who is at Decision Research and the University of Oregon. And before I start, I'd like to acknowledge funding by the Lloyd's Register Foundation. So, as you might know, numeracy refers to the ability to understand and use numbers. So basic numeracy involves understanding how to convert simple percentages into frequencies or recognizing that 10% is the same as 1 in 10. People are said to have low numeracy when they give an incorrect or no answer to such basic numerical problems. One study found that more than 30% of participants in the United States and Germany were unable to provide a correct answer to basic numerical questions, though Germans did slightly better than Americans. Now, numeracy is important. The Organization for Economic Coordination and Development, OECD, has suggested that numeracy is needed to manage the mathematical demands of a range of situations in adult life. Low numeracy can undermine people's ability, confidence, and motivation to engage with numerical tasks. Even after accounting for education and intelligence, low numeracy has been related to performing worse on decisions that involve numerical computations. And adults with low numeracy often have fewer employment opportunities and end up in lower paying jobs, according to national data from the United Kingdom. And a study in Australia suggested that lower education is associated with less numeracy and less literacy, and that both low numeracy and low literacy are associated with unemployment. In the United States, the Netherlands, the United Kingdom, and Peru, people with low numeracy have reported lower income and less wealth accumulation, even after accounting for education. And several studies from the United States also suggest that low numeracy may contribute to financial difficulties independent of one's income. So independent of income, low numeracy has been associated with making actual financial mistakes, with taking on high interest loans, with failing to pay off credit cards, with defaulting on mortgages, and so on. And another study from the United States found that only 35% of participants had sufficient numeracy to correctly identify when a debt could never be paid off after being told the amount owed on a credit card, the annual percentage rate, and monthly payments. So that suggests that low numeracy can really undermine financial well-being. But one limitation of numeracy research is that it is mostly focused on single high-income countries. So most numeracy research has been conducted in the United States or the United Kingdom or a country within the European Union. There are very few cross-country comparisons, but those cross-country comparisons that have been conducted have tended to omit the poorest countries. Now, this is important because in low-income countries, people go to school about half as long as compared to high-income countries. And so that means they probably have lower numeracy because if you go to school less long, you have less opportunity to be taught numeracy. Also in low-income countries, people live on a lot less money than in high-income countries. And if you live on low income, it may be especially important to have good numeracy because financial mistakes as a result of low numeracy can be really costly if you already have very little money. So in the present study, we tried to look at 3 research questions. The first one was, does low numeracy vary between low-income countries, lower middle-income countries, upper middle-income countries, and high-income countries around the world? The second one is low numeracy associated with being among the poorest 20% of one's country? And then the third one is whether low numeracy is associated with difficulties making ends meet, even after accounting for income. So to answer those research questions, we analyzed data from the Lloyd's Register Foundation's World Risk Poll 2019. This is a very unique data set. It included an assessment of numeracy in 141 countries around the world, including 21 low-income countries, 34 lower middle-income countries, 43 upper middle-income countries, and 43 high-income countries. Gallup collected the data and conducted face-to-face or phone interviews, depending on what was typical for the country. Gallup also recruited representative samples in each country of about 1,000 participants per country. And I should say the data of the Lloyd's Register Foundation World Risk Poll 2019 are publicly available. So if you're interested in this data set, I encourage you to download it and analyze it for yourself. So in the World Risk Poll, basic numeracy was assessed by asking participants, do you think that 10% is bigger than 1 out of 10, smaller than 1 out of 10, or the same as 1 out of 10? The correct answer is, of course, that 10% is the same as 1 out of 10. And then the incorrect answers included saying that it was bigger, that it was smaller, or giving no answer at all, including don't know. The World Risk Poll has various other questions. For this paper, we looked at self-reported income. So participants indicated how much money they made per month, and then Gallup computed which income quintile for their country participants' income fell into. And then specifically for this paper, we were interested in whether or not participants were among the poorest 20% of their country. Participants were also asked to report how hard or easy it was to make ends meet. They could indicate that they found it difficult or very difficult to live on their present income, or whether they lived comfortably or were getting by on their present income. So let's look at the first research question. Does low numeracy vary between low-income countries, lower middle-income countries, upper middle-income countries, and high-income countries? And here you see the descriptive statistics, and they indicate that low numeracy is more common in low-income countries and lower middle-income countries as compared to upper middle-income countries and high-income countries. And this is a new insight because low-income countries have typically not been included in numeracy research. And here you see the kinds of answers low numerate participants gave. The red reflects participants who gave no answer to the numeracy question, and you see that that's a majority in each country income category. Then the black and the gray reflect giving the two types of incorrect answers, so saying that 10% is bigger or smaller than 1 in 10. And those incorrect answers were equally likely within each country income category. Here you see how low numeracy is distributed across the world. We already showed that low numeracy is more common in the poorer countries. Those are reflected, the countries with more low numerate participants are shown in darker red. So you see them specifically in Africa, some countries in South America, and South Asia. And then here you see a logistic regression model predicting low numeracy. I want to point you to the first row in this table. It shows that participants in low-income countries had 5 times the odds of having low numeracy as compared to participants in high-income countries. Here, low numeracy is defined as giving an incorrect or no answer to the numeracy question. And this analysis controlled for the demographics that are usually correlated to low numeracy in high-income countries, including lower education, female gender, and older age. And in fact, being in a low-income country is much more strongly correlated to low numeracy than those demographic variables. Here you see a multinomial regression model that predicts each type of answer that low numerate participants gave. And you see that it's systematically the case that participants from low-income countries gave the incorrect answers or gave no answer at all, more so than participants from high-income countries. And this is true after controlling for demographics. Let's look at the second research question. Is low numeracy associated with being among the poorest 20% of one's country? And we find that this is the case. So on this graph, you see descriptive statistics with the red bars reflecting low numerate participants and the gray bars reflecting participants with the basic numeracy to answer the numeracy question correctly. And you see that across country income categories, participants with lower numeracy are more likely to be among the poorest in their country. And then you see that this result holds in logistic regression models. Model 2A predicts being among the poorest 20% in one's country from low numeracy assessed as giving an incorrect or no answer to the numeracy question. And this analysis holds after controlling for education, age, gender, and country income category. Model 2B looks at whether each type of answer that the low numerate gave predicted being among the poorest 20% in one's country. And you can see that each type of incorrect answer and giving no answer were associated with being among the poorest 20% of one's country, even after controlling for education, age, gender, and country income category. And I should also note that these findings held within each country income category. Then the third research question is whether low numeracy is associated with difficulties making ends meet independent of one's income. And here you see the descriptive statistics, and you see that across country income categories, low numeracy is associated with difficulties making ends meet. Then the regression models looked at whether this was true independent of income, education, age, gender, and country income category, and we found that this was the case. So model 3A shows that low numeracy, assessed as giving an incorrect or no answer to the numeracy question, was associated with difficulty living on one's income. And then model 3B shows that this is particularly driven by participants who gave no answer at all. I should say that when we conducted these analyses separately for each country income category, they did not hold in low income countries and lower middle income countries. So it was only the case in upper middle income countries and high income countries that participants with low numeracy had more difficulty making ends meet independent of their income. And so it may be the case that participants in low income countries and lower income countries are living on such small incomes that having better numeracy doesn't help them to actually live on that income. So overall, we find that low numeracy is more common in poorer countries, and these were the countries that were traditionally not included in numeracy research. We also find that low numeracy is associated with being among the poorest in one's country, and moreover, that low numeracy is associated with struggling to make ends meet independent of income. At least this is the case in upper middle income countries and in high income countries. So of course, every study has limitations, and so does ours. The most important one is that we only used, the World Risk Poll only had one numeracy item. Now I should say that performance on this single numeracy item is typically correlated to performance on multi-item validated numeracy measures. Also, I should note that correlation is not causation. So for example, we find that low numeracy is correlated with low income, but it may be the case that, people with low numeracy get lower paying jobs, but it could also be that in lower paying jobs, you use numbers less. And so if you have a lower paying job, you also don't learn to work with numbers. Our results do suggest that it's perhaps important to have interventions that improve numeracy. We can do that in different ways. First, we can increase access to education. Like I said before, in low-income countries, people go to school about half as long as in high-income countries, and education can help people to learn about how to use numbers, and so it can improve their numeracy to go to school longer. And it's important to improve numerical ability and numerical confidence because it has been found that both of those are important to promoting better financial outcomes and financial well-being. Our data also suggests that interventions to improve numeracy may help overcome financial struggles, but not in low-income and lower middle-income countries, perhaps because people in those countries make so little money that numeracy alone doesn't help them. And so in low-income countries and lower middle-income countries, interventions that aim to improve numeracy may need to be combined with interventions that provide financial support so as to help people to have better financial well-being. Thank you very much for your attention.